grouped in, like every single part of my life is, every aspect is all in the same room together. But thank you so much because, first of all, for supporting me and my project, but also because all of you can get the word out about IBS and that there's finally a treatment that actually really helps people. So you are all ambassadors. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about IBS for those of you who don't know about it, and I'll talk a little bit about what the book is about, the diet, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about something that all of you can take home with for your own health, and then I have some thank yous. So first of all, if you have IBS, you know what it is. If you don't have IBS, what I want you to do is to imagine the last time you had a bad intestinal virus. Remember what that felt like, the cramps, the pain, the urgency, you needed to be near a bathroom at all times. Or imagine the last time that you were constipated and how uncomfortable that was. But imagine that you have that uncomfortable feeling for 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, a month. And with that constipation, you have terrible pain, and then you know that once you finally are going to go, that you're going to be in the bathroom for 3 hours. So imagine that that's what you're dealing with, but you're dealing with that all the time. Like you're trying to live your regular life, but you cannot count on your intestines to give you any kind of predictability. And then what happens is you go see your doctor because you're bent over in pain. You can't believe you're in as much pain as you're in. It's burning, it's stabbing, it's radiating. And you go to your doctor and they do all the tests and they say, oh, no, test all came back normal, you're fine. It's just IBS. Cut down your stress, eat more fiber, and live with it. And that's really what people with IBS have been told, which is so contrary to, we have a, strep throat, you go to the doctor, they give you an antibiotic, you feel better. And so here people with IBS have just been, told there's kind of no hope, it's chronic, just live with it. So then, so my professional life, I started working with patients, just my regular therapy patients would come in and started telling me about IBS. It sounded horrible to me. I had never heard about it in graduate school, even though, clearly there's a stress component. And IBS patients would see psychologists who would say it's medical, can't help you, and they'd see medical doctors who say it's psychological, and they just totally fell through the cracks. So I knew I wanted to get into some writing, and when I started to research IBS, I saw that the kind of therapy I do, CBT, it's called cognitive behavioral therapy, is actually very good for, it's a good treatment in terms of dealing with the anxiety of IBS, and that was my first book, which is here. This is, older now. But, so I would be writing about IBS and helping patients with the anxiety, but it just sort of felt like something was missing because all I was kind of doing was helping them to not be anxious about their symptoms, but it didn't do anything to put out the fire. And then on the flip side is my personal life, where I have really gotten to learn so much more about the role that nutrition and the foods that we eat affect the health problems that we have. So I had read everything by Dr. Andrew Weil, I cut out dairy, and lo and behold, my chronic postnasal drip was gone. At one point I was drinking wheatgrass juice, and you know what? Not only did I have energy and felt like that sense of vitality, like an old-fashioned word, vitality, but about 2 weeks into that experiment, I noticed that when I went to bed at night, I didn't go through that 10 minutes of total muscle pain that I went through every single night when I went to bed. The only thing that had changed was the wheatgrass. So here in my personal life, I'm saying, wow, you make nutrition changes and you feel better, but everything you read about IBS, it's not about, doctors and researchers, even to this day, really minimize the impact of food, which makes no sense to me. It affects the intestines. The intestines' main job is to process food. How could food not have an impact? So then luckily, out of a far-flung corner of the world, Australia, researchers came up with this new diet called a low-FODMAP diet. And it really was the brainchild of a dietitian in Australia who saw that her clients, her IBS clients, all kind of reacted to the same foods. So she hooked up with some researchers at Monash University in Australia, and they said, well, let's look at what these foods have in common. Why are they causing problems for people with IBS? And so what they found out was that there was a certain group of carbohydrates that when people with IBS consume foods that are high in these carbohydrates, their symptoms were worsened. And they call these carbohydrates FODMAPs. So I'll tell you the fancy scientific name because it's not, from a marketing point of view, FODMAPs is not the easiest to remember, but they're fermentable oligo-di-monosaccharides and polyols. But they really are carbohydrates found in common foods. So they found that when people restricted high FODMAP foods from their diets, 75% of IBS patients experienced significant symptom improvement. Now this is unheard of because again, usually you're just told, take this, you manage your symptoms, but the fact that, people, and I've seen it myself and my clients, they go on this diet and for the first time in, years or in their life, they feel like they have a normal stomach, a normal system. And so they can do things like meet friends for breakfast, go for a hike before lunch, things that they had never been able to commit to because they could not count on their bodies. So the diet is not intended to be a long-term diet because FODMAPs are actually, some FODMAPs are healthy foods. They're things, it's a tricky diet because FODMAPs are in such the most common foods that we eat. So, thank you. They, things like onion and garlic, which are in everything. Wheat is high in FODMAPs. So it's when people, actually many IBS people find that they do better when they're gluten-free, but it's not the gluten, which is a protein, that's causing the symptoms. It's the fructans, which is a type of FODMAP, which is causing the symptoms. So really what's recommended is you go on an elimination diet for about 4 to 8 weeks. You eat only low FODMAP foods, and every recipe in here is appropriate for somebody who's eating that first phase of the diet, which is no FODMAPs at all. And then once you get through the elimination period, then you slowly introduce each of the different FODMAP types back one at a time because not everyone is reactive to every type of FODMAP. And the point is you want to learn which foods you can and cannot tolerate so you can really broaden the foods that you can eat. So just to give you an example of a couple of FODMAPs you have actually heard of, lactose is one, so people have lactose intolerance. Fructose is another, some people have fructose malabsorption. So those are the more common ones that you might have heard of. Now, of course, high fructose corn syrup is in everything. So you could see how this diet would be tricky for people. It is not a weight loss diet, it's nothing like that. And it's not even a healthy diet. It's really to be seen as a treatment. When we were writing the book, I wrote this book with my sister, who was the main recipe developer, but I had to come up with some of the recipes because I couldn't ask her to do all 150. And when I was talking to my mom about it, I was like, Mom, it's kind of challenging because I have to make things that don't have like garlic and onions. My mother's like, I can't have onions? I'm like, no, you have IBS. You can have onions. Eat your onions. So, anyway, so what the book does is it offers the science behind the diet, step-by-step instructions for following the diet, and the aforementioned 150 recipes that are appropriate for a low FODMAP diet. And so for those of you who are so nice to buy the book, enjoy the recipes because they're very delicious and very helpful. And you can feel free to add onions and garlic as needed if you don't mind. So before I go on to gut health in general, does anybody have any questions about IBS or the diet? Okay, so I'm also guessing everyone in this room has intestines. And if you don't have gastrointestinal symptoms, you probably are not giving your intestines a lot of thought. But the newest research suggests that the health of your intestines has a lot to do with your overall health. And so that is why I want you all to be thinking about the health of your intestines. What they're finding is some of these chronic whole body health problems that people experience, things like acne, allergies, arthritis, autoimmune diseases. My nurse friend in the corner is nodding her head like crazy, right? Good to validate what I'm saying. So it's new for medicine has always been so separated. You know what I mean? You have the skin doctor over here, and the heart doctor over here, and the rheumatologist over here. But they're finding that the health of your gut is could very much be playing a role in these conditions that are affecting other parts of your body. So my takeaway for you all tonight is to give you some ways to make sure that you are taking good care of your intestines. First, I want you to understand a little bit how the health of your intestines is affecting these other conditions. So within our intestines, we have trillions of microorganisms. They have been long overlooked by researchers, but they now are one of the newest cutting-edge areas of science. Most of these microorganisms are bacteria. There's other things, but overall it's called our gut flora. And when the gut flora is healthy and in good balance, then the lining in the intestines is healthy and nice and tight. When gut flora is out of balance, when there's more bad bacteria than good bacteria, you can experience gastrointestinal symptoms, or there is a condition that's getting more attention. It's called increased intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut syndrome. Again, my nurse friend is nodding away over here. So if you think of what the job of the intestines is it is its job to absorb nutrients from the food that we eat and to keep out invaders. So we had more recently seen the movie American Sniper, and I was taken by, if you're a woman, don't go see the movie, but men will love it. But I was taken by the image of the compound, right? What is the compound in a war zone for? It's to let the good guys in and keep the bad guys out. And that is exactly what the lining of your intestine is supposed to do. And so it's very tightly sealed, and it's just supposed to open up to let in appropriate nutrients and stay closed to keep out any invaders. But when the gut bacteria is not in a healthy balance, there seems to now be openings. They're microscopic, it's tiny, it's not like there's big gaps in your intestines, but microscopic enough that things that should not be entering into your body are coming in. So what happens is, just like the compound in American Sniper, is right on the inside of the lining is one of the highest concentrations of your immune cells. But that makes sense, because your immune system is supposed to attack any invaders. So when the lining is not tight and these things are coming in, the immune cells are overreacting, overacting. And then the other thing that happens is, not only are the immune system cells at the level of the intestines being activated, but as these particles enter your bloodstream and they go around to all the organs. Hi, everybody. Welcome. That's okay. I know parking's terrible. Right? And I'm getting to the good part anyway. So all the rest is just science. What you can do for it, right? So anyway, when these proteins and other things that we put into our bodies enter into our bloodstreams and get to the various organs, the immune system kicks in, and that's when it attacks your own cells, and that's why you see these autoimmune problems. So I'm talking about how everybody can take care of the health of their gut, even if you don't have IBS. So now I'm going to tell you what you can do to make sure you have the healthiest gut bacteria. Number one, I'm going to sound like everybody's mom. You're going to eat your vegetables. My friends.
Oh.
Hello. It's a little like Halloween. Everybody's
Where's the candy?
Okay.
Not the same. No, you can't.
Veggies on the
That's number one, not the list. No. It's there. So you want to eat your vegetables. So that means the green leafy vegetables that most of us do not tend to eat, but they're so good for your gut bacteria. Things like kale and chard, collard greens, bok choy. Eat your green leafy vegetables and then eat that whole variety of colors of all the other amazing vegetables that we have. Very good for your gut bacteria. The next thing you want to think about, and again, I know this is so hard in our society because we eat this horrendous diet and then we have all these health problems and we don't know that there's a connection, but there's very much a connection. So the next thing you really want to do your best to do as much as possible is to eat clean. So what that means, eating clean, is that you are eating real food. Food that your great-grandmother would recognize. I don't know that your great-great-grandmother would recognize a Twinkie as food. And the thing is that we eat these foods that we read the ingredients, we don't even know what they are, but we expect that our intestines, that our bodies are going to know what they are, but they don't. One night I was making dinner and the side was mashed sweet potatoes, but my older son, TJ, does not like he doesn't like sweet potatoes. So I broke down, I said, all right, we'll buy one of those tubs of regular mashed potatoes you can get in the store. So as we're eating dinner, I'm like, humor me, TJ, read the ingredients. Do you know one of the ingredients in that tub of mashed potatoes is titanium? So he Wikipedia's it, because that's what, what was he, 18 of the 17 of the time. That's what you go right out and do a Google search. So titanium is found in house paint, sun lotion, and as food coloring. And this is what the FDA allows out there, right? So
don't forget golf clubs.
And golf clubs, right? Titanium should be on the golf course and not in your gut. Right? So you want to eat clean. And now the next one is the hardest one of all. And you're going to hate me because I'm telling you this, but you really, really, really want to, as much as possible, cut back on the sugar and the refined carbohydrates. Refined carbohydrates is mainly white flour, which again is in everything. Sugar isn't everything. A glass of soda, I think, has something like 6 tablespoons of sugar. High fructose corn syrup, is in things that should never be in. Salad dressings, ketchup, spaghetti sauce. It's everywhere because it's cheap and it makes the products last long and it makes a lot of money for the food manufacturers. But besides the fact that the sugars and the refined carbohydrates do all sorts of things with your blood sugar level, insulin responses, and therefore totally increase your risk for obesity, diabetes, heart disease. You know, these are all preventable diseases. I have been, since my kids are little, I've been a sandwich generation person. I've watched my parents go through every one of those things on that list and add cancer to it. My goal is that my kids are not going to have sandwich generation mom, that I'm going to be healthy, and maybe dad will see. Right? But the other thing besides the effect on the blood sugar levels with the refined carbs, the sugars, is that they're terrible for gut bacteria. They really enhance, because it's too much carbohydrates getting down there, so it's, you know, the gut bacteria is fermenting away and really enhancing the growth of the unfriendly bacteria and not enough of the good bacteria. Probiotics are wonderful. If you actually have gastrointestinal symptoms, you should be taking a probiotic. Those are what they are, supplements that have good friendly bacteria, again, help to bring a better balance. If you don't have gastrointestinal symptoms, but you have any of those like whole body conditions that I've been talking about, then you might want to look into fermented foods. So there are fermented vegetables. Real sauerkraut is a fermented food, not the stuff you get in the cans with the salt and all that. Kimchi, and then there's the drinks, kombucha and kefir. What they are, the way that they're prepared, yogurt is a fermented food. It's just a lot of the yogurts have so much sugar in them, it's sort of defeating the purpose. But the way that they're prepared, because they're fermented, they can contain all these wonderful strains of bacteria. And the nice thing about it, as opposed to when you take a supplement, you're getting like one lab-tested strain, whereas when you eat fermented foods, you're getting a variety. And to me personally, I love the idea of food as medicine, so fermented foods are great. And then the last thing that you can do for your gut bacteria is stress management. So we all have stress in our lives. We all have people we have to take care of, jobs we have to do, bills we have to pay. But there are things that you can do to, and that stress can really set off your bacteria. I mean, ask anybody with IBS and they'll say when they're under stress, their symptoms are worse. And it seems to be that there's something going on within the body, whether there's more acid or who knows. I don't think they totally know, but more bad bacteria proliferate when you're under stress. But there are things you can do to reduce the effect of stress on your body. Things like yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, physical exercise, anything creative, just being outside, anything that you can do to balance the stress will be good for your gut bacteria. So, besides the fact that I've now ruined everybody's sandwich that I'm serving later, does anybody have any questions? So then you're getting all the amazing benefits of the cacao, which is great antioxidants, without too much of the dairy and without too much of the sugar. So, again, wean yourself, try to 70% and then get up to 85%.
Spoken by a girl who keeps the dark chocolate under lock and key.
But it is great for, you know, for sweet cravings.
How about beer?
Perfect. Beer is,
It's a
unfortunately,
ferment, right?
it's fermented.
Mhm.
It's a grain though, so it can be inflammatory. Red wine is good for you.
Coffee is safe.
Right?
Caffeine is safe.
Little caffeine is not bad for you. Yeah, coffee has some good antioxidants in it. So enjoy your coffee. If you don't have to. Yes.
I was like, dude.
Whatever Dave.
The last several
I'm
years,
yelling
there's
at
been
you.
an
They're
emphasis
yelling at me.
on putting dirt back into the environment, and especially
Get to that,
the
actually.
overemphasis of cleanliness with children. That there's good dirt that builds up the immune system. Is there any linkages there?
I was actually going to be talking about in about 5 minutes on that subject. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good for gut bacteria. All right, any other questions before I have some plugs and some thank yous? No? Okay, so plug. So number one, for those of you who know me well, you might be surprised to know that I suffered from severe social anxiety for years. Severe. A cocktail party at the yacht club would be excruciating for me.
Still is.
Still is. But there are two things that have really, really helped me tremendously. So the first is that I got a dog. Ask Tom, you put a dog leash in my hands and I'll talk to anybody. And before 7 a.m., I own this town. And everybody on Main Street that's out between 6 and 7.
Who's that guy? If she's away, I'm walking the dog. Who's that guy walking Mickey? Are you Mickey's dad?
The second thing that really had the most tremendous impact is that I started taking my yoga classes here at the Northport Yoga Center. And Gazin Patente is the owner and my teacher. Her personality is so easygoing and friendly and funny. And I truly believe that a studio reflects the owner, the prime teacher. So she has created an atmosphere down here that is just kind of maybe the first time in my life where I just felt so accepted and loved and welcomed. And to that, my great gratitude to Gazin. What does that say, right? But that feeling of being accepted and loved and welcomed has then generalized to the rest of my world, and so my anxiety has really gone down. It's really almost non-existent, which is amazing. It wasn't therapy that helped, which is funny, because I'm a psychologist. It wasn't therapy. It was the dog and the yoga.
Not the yacht club.
So, and not the yacht club. That made it worse, that's for sure. But, so I'm going to give a plug to all of you for yoga. Yoga is good for your gut bacteria because of the stress relief. But I want to talk about 3 myths about yoga that might have prevented you from ever taking a yoga class. And the first is that you have to be flexible. People say, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible. My teacher is nodding her head over there. I have been taking yoga, practicing yoga about 8 years, and I would say I'm still not flexible. But what I
Tom agrees with that, by the way.
I can see where you're going.
Sorry, Mark.
That's guy talk, though.
That's later.
But what I have become is limber. I am light on my feet. I can get up off the floor. I stand up straight. That is what yoga has done for me. So, I'm never be Gumby, not in this particular life, but just the benefits of yoga on my physical body have been great. The next myth about yoga is that you have to be able to empty your brain. I have a busy brain, I won't be able to empty my brain. You will not empty your brain. Your brain will talk to you the entire time you're at yoga. It's going to come up with the most amazing, fascinating things for you to be thinking about while you're practicing yoga. But what yoga does for you is it increases your ability to focus on the here and now. Because it's really nothing more than a big game assignment says. The yoga teacher says, put your feet hip width apart, right? Raise your hands up, lift up out of your, lift your rib cage up, out, tighten your quads. So as you are doing every one of those steps, you are focusing on the here and now because you're focusing on your quads, you're focusing about where your feet are, you're focusing on where your ribs are. And so then what happens over time is that generalizes to your life and you are more present and focused. I will say the most brilliant thing that Gazin has ever said, and she's going to be surprised by this, but there's a pose called half moon pose. It's a beautiful pose. It is extremely challenging for me. I don't know if it's challenging for anybody else because I'm so busy trying not to fall down my own mat that I don't know what's going on around me. But half moon is you're kind of up on one leg and one hand. It's beautiful. Very challenging for me. And one day in class, just a regular Sunday class, we did half moon and then we went on to the next thing. Gazin said, half moon is over. And that is my mantra for life. Half moon is over. So when somebody cuts me off on the parkway, if you have a fight with your spouse in the morning before work, I hear this happens. I don't know, but this is what I hear, right? If you open up a piece of mail and there's bad news, you're upset. You're going to get upset. You're human. But then you move on to the next thing. Half moon is over. And that is really where yoga gives you such resilience for your life. And then the last myth about yoga is that it's just for women. So here in this studio, I don't know compared to other studios, but I think that there's a higher percentage of male students than in other. And again, I think it has a lot to do with Gazin's amazing personality, and I'm thinking a little bit to do with the fact that she's gorgeous. But there are a lot of men here, and so do not feel that it's only for women. So I highly recommend you take some classes, and of course I highly recommend this studio. You've done the hardest part. You've walked in the door and figured out what the hell to do with your shoes.
But I'm not here all the time.
Other than that, you're just on your mat. It's a game assignment says. No one is looking at what you're doing because everybody else is just kind of holding on for their own dear life. And you're just following along with what the teacher says. But it's great for your physical health. It's great for your emotional health. Whenever I say I'm going to skip yoga, Tom's like, no, go to yoga, please, go to yoga.
George
Don't
knows that.
skip, right? George says
I'll drive her.
Okay, next little plug for those of you who know my front yard, my famous front yard vegetable garden, my organic garden. As my friend Teresa said the other day, I think Barbara has a guy. I have a guy. He's Dylan Lacopoli. Dylan is also actually next to our Campari doing this amazing thing on Saturday nights for the next few weeks where they're pairing farm-to-table food with different kinds of world music. But Dylan is my organic gardening friend, and if you are at all thinking about growing your own vegetables, he is the guy for you because he'll get you set up and he'll support you and he'll make it easy. And you can have a pretty big garden like mine, or some people just, he's so creative. He'll do something off the side of the deck, across the side of your house, wherever you have some sun, you can grow. And what I will tell you about gardening, so first of all, when you are growing your own food, you know it's clean. You know what you put in that soil, and that you've nurtured that soil, and so the vegetables that you are eating have pulled out the most amazing vitamins and minerals from the soil. If you grow your own carrot, you're going to call me up and say, Barbara, that was the best carrot I ever had in my whole life. And the first time we ever grew eggplants, I was like, I didn't even know eggplant had flavor, right? Until you grow your own. And the other thing about organic gardening, besides that you're eating all these amazing foods so good for your body, is what Steve said, and that is that digging in the dirt is good for your gut bacteria. That those microorganisms in the soil interact with the microorganisms within you, and definitely puts you at less risk for autoimmune disease. So one more thing on the subject of Dylan, he has some flyers here for his gardening service. Otherwise, he's Hogs, Long Island, Home Organic Gardening Service, LI. Just look it up on the internet. But he is putting together, if you sort of enjoyed tonight, like just coming out and learning something different than usual, he's hosting an event at the Harbor Fields Library. It's Thursday, March 26th, 6:30, and it's going to be a screening of this beautiful documentary on soil and the relationship of soil health to our physical health. And he's put together a panel of organic gardeners, and I think including Mac Machination from the chicken farm that we're also lucky to have. And I'll be there as well, and I'll be talking about, again, the health of the soil and the health of our guts. So I have flyers for that, flyers for this. One more thank you, and that is my husband, Tom, who, for an Irish Catholic cop from Queens, does a remarkable job of trying to keep up with just what the hell I'm eating these days. She's eating dairy, she's not eating dairy. She's eating gluten, she's not eating gluten. She's eating meat, she's not eating meat. He really does his best to try, because every time I read a new book, I'm like, oh, I'm going to eat like that. But he's really done an amazing job. But the other thing that Tom has done is that he has been a tremendous support to me in all the wild and wacky ways that my career has gone. At some point asked me about my 2 degrees of separation from Leonard Nimoy. And may he rest in peace, right? Because I have a cool story from that, but that is the wild and wacky ways that my career has gone.
If you want to know the story, you have to come back to the house.
And Tom has, just totally supported me, whatever I want to do, and he works that boring government job, gives us all health insurance, so. So one last thing is, it is my intention to start to try to host some healthy cooking classes at my house, because I do believe that most people really do want to eat healthy. It's just the convenient foods are convenient and fast, and it seems like healthy food is hard. So I want to teach classes to show you that without a lot of time and effort, you can create some beautiful healthy meals for yourself. And I'm going to start with a breakfast class, so you start off your day well. So I have flyers. It'll be Sunday, March 29th at noon will be my first one. There's flyers here, and you can email me if you would like to come. I'd love to have you. So I guess mainly, again, thank you to Gazin for hosting this event. Thank you all for coming. Look at all your beautiful faces, really. Listen to my little speech, and thank you. And may you all experience wonderful health. Namaste.